Hi friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Missy and today is Friday, which means I am making a dessert and I'm going to make something completely new. And basically what I'm doing is recipe developing here. I have two wants. I really wanted like a stone fruit dessert and I'm really trying to perfect an easy sourdough vanilla cake recipe. So I thought this would be perfect to kind of combine the two. My inspiration here is like a pineapple upside down cake, which is a white cake or a yellow cake with kind of a brown sugar top and then pineapple. But instead of pineapple, originally I wanted to use peaches, but my grocery store didn't have any good looking ones. So I got nectarines. I think it will work okay. And I'm completely experimenting here with sourdough cake recipes. I want to make my own. My regular cake that I love to do is from Paul Hollywood from the British Bake Off. He has a YouTube channel and he was talking about a cake that is basically 4 ingredients, equal weights in grams. So what you do is you measure, and I did this last night, I went ahead and picked 3 eggs, I measured them with the shells on, and it came to 196 grams. So then what I did, well, Paul Hollywood's recipe is you measure eggs with the shells, so that's ingredient 1, and you then weigh out butter, and he did half butter, half margarine, but it's basically a solid fat like that, the same weight, and sugar, and then self-rising flour. Those were the 4 main ingredients. Now I add to it a little bit, like I'll add vanilla, but I wanted to ferment my grains or the flour, so this is where I'm completely testing here. Obviously there's no liquid in that for me to moisten the flour for it to ferment. So last night I went ahead and picked 3 eggs out and weighed them with the shells. They were 196 grams. So then I took a new bowl and I measured out ½ a cup of fed starter. I actually fed it earlier in the day. It had been sitting on my counter for about 8 hours when I scooped it into the bowl. And then I added 196 grams, or the same weight as the eggs with the shells, in self-rising flour. And I mixed that with just enough water to combine, and it ended up being 166 grams. And then I covered that, left that on the counter, and it fermented overnight. I was hoping to hit this in this morning, but my son was being a toddler, so it's now 2 o'clock that I'm getting to it. So it's been on the counter for basically 18 hours. It's been on the counter for 18 hours. So it's very bubbly and active. And then this morning I went ahead and I took out 1 stick of butter, and this butter, I'll weigh it too. The wrapper says it's 113 grams, but what I'm gonna do, instead of just having like a ½ stick of butter hanging out in my fridge, I'm going to weigh this in a bowl and then build up to 196 grams with coconut oil. I figured that the 2 fats might be interesting to see how they work. Then I'm gonna add 196 grams of just regular sugar. I have cane sugar, and I'm gonna beat that for a while, and then I will beat in 1 egg at a time until that's light and fluffy. Then we just add our sourdough mix it all together. And the other thing that I'm going to test is I'm going to do this in my 8-inch cast iron. And to make the topping, scour a bunch of recipes, and it looks like the best one was to melt 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to melt that on the stove, and then add in there a ½ a cup of brown sugar and arrange your fruit over that. I may actually put a dusting of cinnamon in here too. And then I'm going to pour the cake batter over that. I'm going to put it in an oven, 350, and I'm going to bake it for about 30 minutes, and I'll check it probably at around 25. And I'm going to let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to keep our fingers crossed and invert it and see what happens. Worst case scenario, it sticks to my cast iron, but it's still gonna be delicious. It's still gonna be edible. I could try it in a cake pan, but something just tells me I really wanna try it on one of my cast irons and see how it works. So this is what we're gonna try. The first thing I need is, I don't have enough brown sugar, so I need to make mine. I actually have not bought brown sugar in forever. I just take cane sugar and mix some molasses with it till it's combined and call it a day. So that's what I'm gonna do first, and basically just get the topping part ready, I think is the plan here. Oh, and get my oven preheated to 375. And the whole time while I'm recipe developing like something like this, I just write a whole bunch of notes, and then if this works, then you're watching this video, and I'll put on my blog literally just like a recipe with a picture. It's not the actual, my blog isn't set up to do like printable recipes. I don't do recipes detailed enough or know enough how to do them that way. So it's an easy one-page print off if you're interested in this recipe. So let me get started here. So here's the result. I was smart enough to put a pan under it, and I just took a paring knife and went around the top and then slid my knife down and went around the side just to loosen it. It's still very, very, very hot. It doesn't really matter because it's edible, and that is the bottom technically, so we haven't seen what the top looks like yet. But this is, I'm gonna call this like a quasi-fail. We have to taste it first and see what it tastes like. But I'm gonna do this again, and instead of 3 eggs, we're gonna do 2. So this is attempt 1. I have to get it out too. That's another thing. We gotta get it out and then we gotta try it. So stay tuned. I'm just gonna let this cool for a couple minutes. So I have lost all faith in this cake. The middle seems a little raw to me, but I have to feed her and she has to go down for a nap. So I do not have time to put this back in the oven. It is pulling away from the sides. Since it's already a fail, we're just gonna hope for the best. So I don't even wanna put this on a cutting board because the inside might goo all over the place. So I'm just gonna try, use a pizza pan. This may be hilarious. We'll see how this goes. And like I said, I did run a butter knife like this. I take the butter knife and flip it with the dull side out. And I just ran it around here a bunch of times. And it's definitely not sticking on the sides at least. So let's see what happens. Oh no, girl. I definitely heard a flap. And these little bits too are very good. Oh my God, that looks actually pretty good. Oh my God, I surprised myself. So I do have cake all over the floor. But this looks really pretty. You can see the nectarines a little bit, and it has a brown sugar top. It is very hot. I'm shocked that came out. There's cake crumbs all over the counter and all over the floor. Mo was on it. So I'm gonna let this cool, and you can probably serve this with whipped cream or vanilla ice cream. I'm just gonna have it straight, but we're gonna have this after dinner, and it's only 3 o'clock now. So it's gonna sit here and cool. Maybe the inside of the middle will keep cooking a little bit, but this is attempt 1. We're gonna do this again. But let's see how it tastes first. Okay, so this is raw, so I'm gonna have to throw it away. I did, however, the edges are baked, and I did try that, and it actually tastes really good. It's just raw. It needed more time. I didn't have time because Tilly had to go take a nap. So here's what I think we're going to do. I would like the batter to be thicker. The original recipe I was talking about, Paul Hollywood, was you weigh the eggs and it's equal weight of eggs, fat, sugar, self-rising flour. Eggs contain water. I added additional water so that the sourdough had liquid to sour. I'm going to redo the recipe a little bit. I'm gonna do equal weights. I'm gonna weigh the eggs. I'm gonna do 2 eggs this time, not 3. So I'm gonna weigh the 2 eggs. I'm gonna do fat, sugar, flour, and add a half a cup of sourdough starter into that. Mix it all up and let it ferment for 8 hours. I'm gonna try that. A lot of people are squeamish about long fermenting eggs, so that's a complete personal choice to you. I know people recommend, oh, you shouldn't leave eggs out on the counter. I'm just gonna go with it. I feel like my sourdough will protect me because it has the good bacteria in it. That's what we're gonna do. The topping I'm doing exactly the same. Half a stick or 1/4 cup of butter, half a cup of brown sugar. We're gonna try that tomorrow. Okay, so it is the next day and we're gonna try this again. So last night I weighed my eggs with the shells. This time I'm doing 2 eggs. Then also took out a stick of butter because my butter was frozen. The butter is really close to the same grams as the eggs, so I'm just going to make up the difference with coconut oil. And I'm going to take the butter and the coconut oil, beat them with the equal amount of white sugar or cane sugar, and then I'm gonna slowly add in my eggs one at a time. I'm gonna add equal weight of self-rising flour and a half a cup of my fed starter that I fed last night, and let it ferment all day. It's 8:30 right now, so I think around 5 o'clock I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday. 1/4 cup of butter in my cast iron skillet, a half a cup of brown sugar. I'm going to arrange my nectarines, or you can use peaches, pour the batter on top, and bake at 350 for about 35 minutes is what I'm going to shoot for. And then we're going to let it cool in the pan for about 10 minutes I'm gonna take a butter knife, loosen the sides, and we're gonna invert it. So I will admit, this is not the most glamorous dessert, but it's actually really good. I'm so happy that the cake itself worked. So it's fully fermented sourdough yellow cake. It tastes delicious. It's just completely up to you how you feel about leaving eggs out to ferment. I know some people are like, you know, they completely are just anti leaving eggs out. I get eggs from a farm down the street from me. They are refrigerated, but I did ferment them for 8 hours. I felt fine. Actually, this is the next morning. I had this last night. We just tore into it. It was just kind of one of those days, so I didn't even get to film. It did stick a little bit, so probably TMI, but this was in the oven, and then my toddler had, how do I say this? A number 2 problem that needed to be addressed. So this got away from me. It did cook a little bit longer than I wanted it to, so the top was a little browner than I want. But you flipped it over so you don't even see it anyway. And then by the time I inverted it, it stuck a little bit. But the first time it didn't stick, so you know, it is what it is. But it's so good, it's so delicious, and it's actually really, really easy. And I was already thinking that you could do this with pear, you could do it with plum. I did nectarines, you can obviously do it with peaches. And I was thinking you could do this with apple and some cinnamon in the fall. That would be amazing. So I think this is gonna go into my weekly dessert repertoire box kind of thing. But I am actually going to, it's one of those days, I'm gonna cut a piece of this and have it for breakfast. A lot of times I have pie and stuff like that for breakfast. I mean, it's like the same as a Danish really. But I'll try to get a nice cut and show you what it looks like up close. The actual cake is very good. I highly recommend. And I'll be using this cake recipe now for other things as well. Well, if you like seeing recipes like this, give me a thumbs up so I know. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.